Hello, Anthony. Thank you very much for welcoming us here at the United Nations in Geneva, the Palais des Nations. So, as a start, let me ask you, to which extent do international organizations pave the way for more sustainable business activities worldwide?
Thanks, Antoine, and it's good to talk with you. It's a big question because you always have these questions about what is, specifically you ask pave the way. So who is really carving the path forward? And I think that's a combination. Certainly international organizations, we cannot carve that path forward without the support of the private sector. And our experience working with the private sector, working with companies in finance and elsewhere, you have certain pioneering companies that are the ones who are coming up with new ideas and daring to rethink their business models and engage in new things. And it's part of the UN job is to amplify those voices, to show that there are alternative ways of doing business that align with the principles of the United Nations and the goals that our member states have set out for us.
Okay, thanks. You mentioned finance. In your view, what should be the role of finance, of financial markets to promote sustainable business?
Yeah, we live in an interesting world today where you have these completely different silos of activities. So you'll have this political realm at the United Nations with member states and so on, civil society, where they will say that certain things are important to them, like a clean environment, the air we breathe, and so on. And then you have a different world, the world of finance and business, where measured by market reactions and prices and valuations, other things are considered important. So you have a complete disalignment with public policy, what they say is important, and with what markets say is important. So that if you have a company that does something really bad to the environment or something, you don't necessarily see a big drop in their share price or something. You would if there's some sort of big regulatory action that's going to take place or a lawsuit, yes, then of course investors will react. But if it's just sort of a slow and steady business as usual case where they're not really doing anything to change their business, and at the same time producing negative externalities for the environment or society, what have you, the market doesn't necessarily react. So I think what we are trying to do with our work with the finance community is simply trying to align these two areas so that we don't have a society that is really walking around with two heads all the time. One head saying, we think this is important, and one head over here saying, well, we think this is important.
Okay. Could you give us an example of an international initiative that is promoting sustainable finance and collaborating with the private sector?
Well, sure. I'm happy to talk about the work that we do. At UNCTAD, we work with partners in the UN system, and we organize the Sustainable Stock Exchanges Initiative. The Sustainable Stock Exchanges Initiative, it was launched in 2009 by the Secretary General in New York. And we have brought together stock exchanges from around the world in a partnership. We now have 66 partners, stock exchanges. And just to put that into context, there's only about 85 major exchanges in the world, or significant exchanges in the world. So most of the exchanges in the world are engaged with us. The focus of this work is around peer-to-peer learning, consensus building among the exchanges. And that's because there are a lot of exchanges that are doing interesting things on sustainability. And their peers may not be aware of it. And they're happy to share these examples. While for some exchanges, sustainability aspects do factor into their competitive position, for most exchanges, it's a non-competitive issue that they think everybody should adopt. So there is a lot of sharing of experiences, and that's what we are here to try to facilitate, that dialogue and communication between the exchanges.
Okay. Yeah. And maybe to conclude, a bit more personal question. You've been working here at the UN for how many years?
17 years.
17 years. So maybe if you can tell us about satisfaction or something you were really proud of in your work over the last years.
I think one of the things that I'm happy with is in the last few years we have changed our focus in the sense that there are some people in the system perhaps who do what I always say, that they work for their bookshelf. They're writing reports, they put it on the bookshelf, and they say, congratulations, job done. We don't do that. We're really focused within our work in the Sustainable Stock Exchange Initiative of engaging with exchanges and other capital market stakeholders, investors, issuers, regulators, to affect real change in the markets. And we're doing that by taking these good examples from pioneers in the space and ramping them up, bringing them up to scale by facilitating these best practices and encouraging exchanges. And that I've emphasized the word encourage. At the end of the day, it's up to exchanges to take these measures. But we find in most cases, CEOs of exchanges are very much open to this, that it really boosts their business and their credibility to investors and to the broader constituents that they work with. So I think I'm very proud of the way that we've worked on practical things like boosting the number of exchanges with guidance on sustainability reporting and so on.
Yeah, and not only writing reports.
And not only writing reports, but our job, as I always say, it doesn't end at the four walls of our building. It begins at the four walls of our building outward. We're here to try to make an impact in the broader world of finance.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Anthony, thank you very much for sharing your views. It was a pleasure.
My pleasure. Yeah.